Kevin and I are out grilling on the deck. We're grilling, what is it, elk? A rack of elk? It was so expensive, but we didn't realize that when we were buying it. But we're excited to try it. And we're grilling some corn on our new deck. We were out here last night as well with Kev's parents, but I forgot to vlog it because we were just having a great time. By the way, this is a new weekly vlog. Welcome. I'm thinking this will be the week of vampires, so get ready for Carmilla. Woo. Corn's done. Let's take a look at the elk. That looks done to me. This is our first time having elk. It's so pretty, isn't it? Best way to cook corn. Hello there guys, it is now Tuesday, October 10th, so I didn't end up vlogging yesterday because Kev was home and I was feeling really crappy, so I just didn't update you. However, I am like 99% through Camilla. I'm at the very Carmilla. I keep wanting to call her Camilla because one of the members of Pita, the new American girl group, put through a Korean program. Okay, it's not focusing. There we go. Carmilla by Sheridan Fanu, who has been really popular this victober. Lots of people have been talking about him. So we're starting off this victober vlog right. I enjoyed this so much. It was like suitably creepy. I love the vampire lore involved. This was written, I think, 20 or 30 years before Dracula. It is considered a lesbian classic, but I wouldn't say that this is like a positive representation at all. So I'm a little bit baffled about why people are describing it that way, but I don't know. Regardless, the vampire, the titular vampire Carmilla, I loved the ending, like where it's describing like the lore around vampires. So Carmilla is preying upon young women in an area. It's set in Styria, Austria, which surprised me. I thought it would be set in Ireland because Sheridan Fanu is Irish, but no, it's set in Austria, which I guess that's just the area where vampire lore is more well known. Maybe that's why he said it there. Regardless, it's set in an old castle. The narrator is a female who was one of the ones who was preyed upon by Carmilla. But you know from the beginning that she is a survivor, while many of her fellow victims were not survivors. And I haven't read a lot of like criticism about this, but some of the criticism is, it's about women not being told things when they should be. Like, the narrator isn't told a lot about what's happening to her. The men just kind of take care of it. So I don't know, maybe that's one interpretation of it. I really enjoyed this a lot. Yeah, more than I expected to. It was like deliciously creepy, I would say. And there wasn't a lot of, it wasn't as scary as I was worrying that it might be. So I really loved this. I read this for Victoria's Patreon book club, which is a reader's choice book club where we vote on the genre and we suggest genres and then she picks the genre via spinning wheel. And then we suggest titles that are part of that genre, and then she runs the spinning wheel. And the winner of the spinning wheel is what we end up reading. So that's how we chose Carmilla. So fun. It was just very perfect that we read it for Victober. So next I think I'll be moving on to Dracula. However, I am a couple books behind on nonfiction, so I really need to make a lot of progress on nonfiction. So last night I was reading The Five by Hallie Rubenhold. Guys, this is so good. This is so interesting. So this is following the 5 victims. This covers the 5 victims, canonical victims of Jack the Ripper. So basically the argument of the book is it's very like wrapped up in the social My brain, I think, is getting tired here. I just described this in another video and it went fine. But anyways, yeah, she's very interested in the social climate and the struggles of people during this period. So in the Whitechapel period of England, which is where Jack the Ripper struck, and there was probably more than 5 victims, but we're talking about the 5 canonical victims from Whitechapel. And they were all women, and they were all killed while lying down. They were mostly killed in public places, and so they made no noise. They didn't scream or anything. It was really vicious. He cut their throats and did other things. He didn't rape any of them. And the author posits that most likely the case is that these women were sleeping when Jack the Ripper descended on them and killed them, which is why there was no noise, and how he got away, even though it was in the middle of a public place at night, and they made no noise. That's how he got away, was because he probably found them sleeping on the street for the most part. I think one of them was sleeping in a house, but the rest were like living on the street basically. And that's how he was able to kill them, because they were just vulnerable when they were sleeping there. So the author is really trying to point out here that in the past and at the time, it was always just accepted that the victims of Jack the Ripper were prostitutes. And she is saying only one of them she was definitely a prostitute at the time. And she definitely was practicing prostitution at the time. One of them was a prostitute kind of on and off. But she probably wasn't practicing prostitution at the time. She just did it when she was in like really dire economic straits, because what else are you going to do if you're a woman at this time? Not to say that there weren't other things you could do, but females are just not as physically strong as men. So there was a lot less they could do, especially because it was a really difficult time to find work. There was a lot of the poorer population was protesting at the moment because they were out of work. Artisans were out of work. There were some middle-class people that were out of work, and they had been forced out on the streets. People who were used to a middle-class existence, but lost their jobs for whatever reason. Not all of them were middle-class. Quite a few of them were poorer class who did like kind of unskilled labor. But it was difficult even for men who are stronger and typically more trained in those kinds of things, because they had more opportunities. So for a woman, it was extremely difficult to get by. But regardless, she talks about how it was just assumed that a lot of the inhabitants of Whitehall and a lot of the inhabitants of like certain inns that were cheaper to stay in, she talks about how people just assumed that all of the women were prostitutes there. In the papers at the time, they were kind of sensationalizing it. The papers were, whereas there was no actual facts. There were no facts to actually back up that assertion. Even the police couldn't tell whether the women were prostitutes or not. You know, there was other things that they did, like laundry or like selling matchsticks and things like that. There were other things that they could do, but it was just quite a lot of them did use prostitution at times, at least. So 2 of Jack the Ripper's victims were prostitutes at times in their lives. The other 3, there is no evidence that has survived to show that they are prostitutes. And people assumed that they were prostitutes because of how they were killed and where they were killed, but they didn't really think about the fact that if Jack the Ripper had lured them into these dark places to go have sex with them, basically, they probably would have made noise when he started hurting them. So that's why the author is thinking they were probably just sleeping and he just attacked them when they were asleep. So yeah, I'm really excited to learn more about the 5 canonical victims. I think she mentioned that there are like 11 potential victims that are tied to Jack the Ripper. We still don't know who Jack the Ripper was. He's unidentified, but there are theories of who he might have been. There's like a Polish barber, and there's a couple of people who had like some mental health things, like psychotic stuff, and they ended up dead or in like asylums later on. So it's not, we don't know for sure. There's been like some forensic testing on certain items of clothing, but it's like, we don't even know. This was one of the first serial killers in English history, I think. It was just a time when serial killers were not common. And the police were really trying their best to try and figure out who it was. And there was a public outcry because they couldn't seem to do that. People didn't want to go out of their houses at night. They were afraid to go out of their houses at night. So yeah, it was quite interesting to read about all that. And I haven't made much other progress in Matthew Mayhew's book, London something and the London Poor. I don't remember. But there's a lot of crossover between those two books. So I'm excited to continue with that. And I will let you know what ends up happening there. I did finish Ruth, which is one of my favorite books of the Bible. It's really about women caring for each other when they don't have any other means of subsistence. And they end up meeting like a Christ type figure in the book who ends up kind of saving them from economic nothing. They just didn't have any support. And so it's a really lovely kind of Hufflepuff story. It's only, I think, 4 chapters. So it's very short, and I just finished it in like 2 days, and it was really lovely. So I always love revisiting Ruth. It's one of my favorites. So I'd recommend that if you've never read the Bible, but you're interested. Try out Ruth. It's really, really good. The history is interesting too. Okay, well, I'm going to continue. I'm going to finish up Carmilla and probably listen to some Twilight. Victoria's already finished it, so I'm just like, it's my turn. I also need to work on the 5 and some other things. I really need to finish some nonfiction. So yeah, we'll see how this goes. But anyways, I'll talk to you guys soon.
I don't remember it well. It was a very long time ago, and human memories fade. Very painful. I could tell from the set of his lips he would say no more on this subject. I'm a baddie, but the baddie, pretty little risky baddie.
There's an eclipse happening, guys. I don't know if you can see it through the glasses. I feel like you could see it at 1 second. There you go. Solar eclipse. It looks so like weirdly dark out. It is foggy, but it was lighter before the eclipse, so just had to show you guys because I thought that was cool. This is what it looks like without the glasses. So you really just can't see anything. Hey there guys, it is now Saturday, October 14th. What a great day it's been. Actually, I've already updated you a few times today because this morning we had our one day in the life of Ivan Denisovich meeting, and I just decided that that's going to be the last meeting of the book club, at least for 2023. I've thought about potentially doing like a quarterly book club next year via Zoom, but we'll see. I have about 4 months of readathons scheduled for the next 4 months, so we'll see how I'm feeling about book clubs after that. But it was a really great meeting. Always after a meeting I'm like, yeah, I'm excited that I'm doing this. But then the rest of the month I get a little bit stressed, I think, trying to prepare for it. So actually this time I wasn't stressed at all. I had almost decided to actually, I was the only one I think that kind of felt this way, but I was almost ready to DNF it. By the end of the book, by like halfway through, I was like, I really struggled to get into it. I don't know, there was something about, I felt like really disconnected from the characters. So One Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich is a novel. It's like novella length. And it's technically fiction, but it's basically feels like a memoir about fictional people. It feels like it's telling a truth, but it's not in the form of a story. Like literally the whole point of it is the setting. And I think it did what it was trying to do really well. And basically it showed what life in a Russian gulag was like. That was the whole point, and it definitely pulled it off. And I think that's why it was really moving for so many people. But for me, I just really struggled to get into it. I think because, like I said, there weren't traditional characters or character arcs or a plot. Yeah, I guess the only thing that you could sort of track was the time as the time of day passed. And the main character would just sort of track how time was passing based on, like, you know, the light in the sky, you know, meal times, things like that. So that kind of kept it moving. But yeah, it was, yeah, I would say I'm glad that I have it under my belt, but I'm more excited about getting back to the Gulag Archipelago. I feel like the Gulag Archipelago is very long, but it was just so quotable, and it really expressed a point of view very vividly, whereas this book, I just felt like it was drier, is, I guess maybe a better way to say it. I don't know. But regardless, everybody else really enjoyed it, except I know Penny also was a little bit fatigued she said like 75 pages through, which is probably around halfway. So probably around the same point where I was feeling like, okay, I think I'm done trying so hard to finish this. So I just finished it on audio, and it was actually great on audio. I really enjoyed it, but I definitely couldn't follow things as well. But at that point, I was just like, I just need to finish this. So, but the discussion, as usual, made it really worthwhile. People really noticed, like, the food, how terrible the food was, and yet people were eating it. Like, they were describing shaving the hoof of a horse, and I think boiling it and eating it. I don't remember exactly, but that's how hungry people were. Yeah, it sounded pretty disgusting. And, oh, I haven't been holding it up this whole time. Duh. But yeah, this is my copy. I was initially trying to read it physically because I was like, it's short. I could probably blow through it in just a couple of days. And so I thought maybe physically would be fine. That did not work out. I tried listening to it while reading it, but I had a different translation. I had the like Audible translation, which is on Libby now. It's not just on Audible. So I don't know why it's like only on Audible. But anyways, yeah, so I ended up reading a different translation entirely, like a third completely separate translation for probably like a third of the book. I don't remember what translation it was. I think maybe I still have it. Anyways, regardless, it was a totally different one. And I know it was really different. All of them were really different from Tiffany's, I think, because she was telling me that there was like tons of F words and stuff in hers, and that would totally fit. I understand why there were F words, but mine didn't have that. Like, mine was like strangely sanitized. Although actually towards the end, as I was listening to the audiobook, the ending had a lot of language in it, but never the F word. So I don't know. Translators. Anyways, I'm glad, though, that I got to read it and discuss it. And I think everybody in the group said they were glad that they finally got to it. So, yay. I think it was definitely a success, even though it wasn't... I definitely preferred the Gulag Archipelago. That was a lot more gripping to me. Okay, I also really need to read some nonfiction because I just have barely read any. I've been trying to read the 6, the 5. I'm only like 11% through. I don't know. I kept getting stuck and wanting to read it physically and kind of catch my brain up to it, but it wasn't. I haven't gotten into it yet. It's not anything wrong with the book, I don't think. It's just I haven't gotten into a groove with it yet. So I've also been listening to a lot of K-pop this week and a lot of news and podcasts this week. So I have been getting some nonfiction in and catching up on my Bible stuff and stuff like that. So I have been listening to stuff that isn't fiction. However, none of it counted as like books. So yeah. But I did finish one nonfiction book, Barbarians. This is just like a kid's book about barbarians. This came up because I was featuring it for a library thing. And I was like, oh, I want to learn who it has really, this is like it's called high-low, I believe, where it's like high interest, low reading level required. And it's trying to get kids interested in like history and stuff. And they had some really, really unique ways of doing that. Like this page was a spiral where you had to like keep turning the page as you read it. just kind of fun stuff like that. I thought the illustrations were amazing. I don't think it's I don't think it's really focusing on it, but regardless. And it would have like top 5 extreme barbarians, you know, and it would name them. So it was a really fun and quick, easy read, obviously, for me. I was just curious about it. It's definitely like below my reading level, but I loved the pictures. I loved the maps. I loved kind of getting to know who the Saxons and the Franks and the Goths and the Vandals and the Huns were. Like, I kind of knew those names, but because I don't think I ever studied European history. I never did that in school. So, it was just fun for me. I've always been like, now who are the Goths again? You know, I don't even know who those people are. And as far as my vampire reading, Twilight, I have been slowly but surely making progress on. I think, where am I? I'm 62% through. I know Victoria has finished books 1 and 2. So she is well ahead of me now. And I'm hoping we can read Eclipse next month, because I am enjoying this so much. It's just fun to read about people falling in love sometimes. And I think Stephanie Meyer does that extremely well for like I feel like the way she does it, like the games that they play to get to know each other, how rocky their communication is at first, because it usually is. Like, communication can be pretty rocky when you're a teenager and you just don't know how to do it. And these people are dealing with really big stakes. Literally, like, life and death stakes, secrets of the family that you're not supposed to tell anyone, stuff like that. So, yeah, it's really fun. I'm just really enjoying it so much. And I love the, like, questioning scenes, how they're trying to learn about so much about each other. And yeah, I don't find people as objectionable in this book as others do. I understand that it's like kind of problematic, but as an Enneagram 9, I'm just kind of like, well, yeah, I feel like the transformations of their bodies into like vampires and werewolves is like, it's very like emblematic of puberty, I would say. And all of these people have reasons for being angry or evasive or what's the term? Gaslighting each other, you know, stuff like that. Yeah, honesty comes with a huge price if you're in their situation. So I just think it's funny all the way through, honestly. I think a lot of it is played for humor and not everybody finds it funny, but I find it funny. So yeah, I'm really enjoying this. Can't wait to continue. And what else? I also finished, as you can see, lots of fiction. Halloween Party by Agatha Christie. And I feel like, again, as usual with mysteries, it would have been better if I'd been reading it physically, because I just couldn't keep track of the names at a certain point. So the ending was like, oh, okay, I don't know who those people are. So I was looking for a physical copy because I wanted to physically read the names, but it just wasn't available to me. So I enjoyed it, but I also definitely didn't follow it very well. But I've heard that the movie doesn't follow the story at all anyways, so it probably doesn't matter. Anyways, I did enjoy it, and yeah, that's mainly it. So that was a really fun vlog, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. I think it's time to end it off now, and I will talk to you in next week's vlog. Thanks so much for watching. Take care. Bye.